guys. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone is doing well. I am very excited today because this is the first video for the book club that I talked about on my previous video. And I am in the company of Viva Bella Extina. Please subscribe to her channel. She has excellent content. And it's a pleasure also to have her here with me to discuss the book that we're going to be discussing today. Thank you to all of my subscribers for their support. And before we get started, I am going to be giving like a brief description of the book to all of the folks out there who are watching us to give them some context. And I will also briefly explain the reason as to why I chose this book to discuss it today. So this book is called Feeling Good. The author's name is David Burns, and it's a self-help book. And it uses cognitive therapy, and it really helps people with mood disorders. It equips them with the correct tools to deal with different situations. The reason as to why I chose this book is because I am a case manager. I am also an interpreter, and I'm not a psychologist. However, I think it's important for me to understand how different people in different ages can get depressed, can get misunderstood by others. I mean, in the case of my job as a case manager, I work with people who are anywhere between 65 years old to 85. So these are people that have been, rejected by their family or feel abandoned in some of the cases, have different problems with connecting with their loved ones. And I thought it would be a good idea for me to try to understand more about depression and mood disorders and other things in order to understand them and understand other people. It was also a great source of help for me because I'm a very sensitive person, and I can get easily affected by different situations in my life, and sometimes I can get very sad or very emotional about different things. So by reading this book, I help myself to be fully equipped to deal with different situations. And it talks about different cognitive distortions that we all have, and I'm just going to briefly mention them and describe them so that everybody understands what we're talking about here. And we are also going to be going through some questions that I come up with. So here are the cognitive distortions. All or nothing thinking is when you portray yourself in black or white terms. Overgeneralization: if something happened to you once, it does not mean it will happen to you again. Mental filter means being unhappy because of that lost point on your exam, even though you got an A. Disqualifying the positive, denying anything good that happens to you. Jumping to conclusions, which is a combination of mind reading and fortune telling, which I believe we all experience that at some point in our lives in any given situation. Magnification, which is magnifying negative small events and worrying about possible hypothetical negative consequences. Minimization: shrinking things until they become insignificant, be they other people, imperfections, or your own qualities. Emotional reasoning: your emotions are not true. Sometimes, if we lead ourselves by our emotions, if we, for example, at my work, I was on the phone the other day dealing with a consumer that was not very nice to me. Not very nice to me, but unnice to Dominican people because he said, I don't want homemakers from this company here anymore because they're all Dominican and they don't know how to do anything. And of course, for me, that was very offensive because I'm Dominican. But of course, I have to lead that to the side. This is my job, and I'm just not going to let it affect me. But I did saw it like much, much bigger than what it was actually. And I didn't take into account that this is a person that was probably about 70 something years old, who was very frustrated. And perhaps the worker that he had was not good, but what was offensive to me is that he generalized and said all Dominicans don't know how to do anything, because I feel like that's unfair. Continuing, should statements, this is when you try to improperly motivate yourself by saying, I should do this or I must do this. Mislabeling, describing an event with words that are inaccurate and emotionally heavily loaded. Personalization, assuming personal responsibility for an event contrary to the evidence. And just to summarize this book, to finish giving context to people, this is a self help book that assists people to change moods by learning how to restructure your negative thoughts. So that was a brief summary of this book, and I will be leaving links of the summary of this book in the description if you want to click on it and become more familiar with this book. So I'm gonna give you the floor right now, so that you can give me your opinion about the book and what was your overall, how do you felt about it in general?
Okay, so I guess I'll start with the first question you sent me, which was what
Yes.
I think was the purpose, the author's purpose of this book. So basically, what I took from it was that the author's purpose was basically to demonstrate to us how much control we actually can have over our moods and our emotional and or mental well-being, which is ultimately, affected by our thoughts. We can't always control our outward circumstances or the events that happen to us in our lives. But, and if that event is negative, then, naturally our thoughts regarding or relating to that event are going to be negative and thus impact our mood. However, I think he was trying to show us that basically how we can work through our thoughts. Something that he mentioned a lot was like writing our thoughts down and working through them, and how by doing that we can shift our like rationale surrounding our thoughts into something more realistic, less depressing, and then that ultimately like lightens and betters our mood, which goes back to the title of feeling good. So yeah, I think it's kind of like just laying out different mental exercises and pretty much providing a different approach to how we handle and internalize our thoughts, and how even though it may be a negative event that caused those feelings, we can mentally work through those thoughts in a way in which we actually come out of the situation with more of a positive mindset. So that's what I kind of took the purpose of what this book was.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think sometimes also like writing, like having a diary, like I don't know if you did that, but when I was in high school, I used to have a diary, and when I was in elementary school as well. But it really helps just to write all of your thoughts, especially when you work and you are in constant interaction with different people, and you see, I don't know what about your work setting, but in my work setting, I have people that I see every day in the office, and then every day I deal with different consumers. So I see all kinds of things, and it does affect me, but I always have to try to keep a good relationship with my consumers and also with my coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
And being that you are with different people, you kind of have to adapt yourself to everybody's personality. And also, when you have different people from different cultures, that is also it's interesting and it's a nice environment, but at the same time you want to make sure that you're not saying certain things that are offensive to certain groups of people. Even the way that you look at people sometimes can be misinterpreted by
Mm-hmm.
others. So, you kind of have to take that into account whenever you interact with different people. And so I think with this book, what I learned mainly, and I think it covers the purpose of what the authors intended to say, is that even though we might not have like a mood disorder, depression, or anything like that, I think everybody has a time in which you might feel like it's the end of the world. It's like all of nothing, like you did something wrong and you make it three times worse, especially us women who tend to be very sensitive and who also want to take care of everyone and also make sure that your job is done correctly. So I think for me, being that I work with people who are from different cultures, sometimes they might say something that for me it might be offensive, but I try not to take it personal, and I try to, not let things get to me. I think that's the main thing that I got from this book, not let things get to me. And I don't think it said it at the beginning of the book, but at some point in the book, how we might fill our minds with different negative thoughts about ourselves, or how other people regard us. So there was this exercise in which you will have to like think about those negative thoughts for like 3 minutes and then stop, and then do again for 2 minutes and then stop. So I did that, and it really helped me to, the negative thoughts are not completely gone, but they are less prominent in my
Yeah.
mind. And I think it's something that we all need to do in order to survive in this world. And you only live life once, so what's the point of being
Yeah.
unhappy all the time and let things get to you? Granted, if a loved one passed away or if something terrible happened, of course you're gonna be affected by it. But on a regular day basis, we cannot let certain things to affect us to the degree that we're not able to enjoy ourselves and correct ourselves and move on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, this book, what it really made me think of the most, and in my personal experience, was what I went through after my ex passed away. Because I mean, there was just so many things surrounding his death, and like so many thoughts that were just constantly in and out of my head. And if I like, there were certain things where like if I dwelt on it too much, it would just totally just dampen my mood. I mean, I'm glad that I never got to the point where I got like depressed, like seriously depressed, because luckily, I did have a very, strong support system around me. But it's very easy to just get so into your head and into your negative thoughts to the point where you block out anything else that's actually, positive. I mean, even in the most negative situations, there's always a positive thing that can come out of it. But your mind just becomes so blocked by, the negative things that have happened to you, and, or details surrounding a certain situation that were negative. And so, I kind of had to learn as time went on to separate some of the negative feelings from one of the more positive ones, and not let it affect my mood so much, which I mean, it's very difficult to do. I feel like when it comes to like negative feelings, for whatever reason, I feel like as humans, it's just so much easier for us to dwell on,
Yes.
our negative feelings, like we can have something positive
And we
happen.
enjoy it.
Right. We can have something positive happen. We're happy for the moment. Great. But it's like that happiness, I don't know, it's like we kind of just get over it. We don't dwell in the positive things. But when something negative happens, it's like the end of the world, and we just can't stop thinking about it. So, I do think that, in this book, it pointed out different ways in which we can kind of work through that so that we're not just like have this laser focus on, the negative things that happen to us.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. Um, Which cognitive distortions have you experienced?
So I would say hands down, the number one like cognitive distortion that I know that I do and that I have done throughout my life is the mental filter one, where you like kind of like I was just saying, where you pick out negative details and you dwell on it. Like this is something I know that I do and I try not to do too much, but it's just so hard not to sometimes. But a small example, which I think you can relate to, or any YouTuber out there that actually makes videos. So, as a YouTuber, when you make videos, when you create content, you hope that the people it reaches will enjoy it, that they'll receive it in a positive way, that they'll agree with the things that you're saying. But, the reality is that doesn't always happen. And, sometimes you can put a video out there and it's that you get all these positive comments and you get, these likes and blah, blah, blah. And people are agreeing with what you're saying. But then you get that one negative comment, where this person, yeah, they might start calling you names or like, putting words in your mouth, just totally misconstrue whatever it was you were trying to say in your video. And then that's like all you can think about, it's like you totally end up disregarding all the positive feedback that you got because you're over here dwelling on that one negative comment, and then it ends up affecting your mood. So it's like, even in something as simple as YouTube, you have to kind of learn to restructure your thoughts and be like, okay, just, and this is something I do myself and I try to do myself more. Just remember, this is YouTube. Not everyone is going to agree with you. Not everyone is going to see your points of view, but at the end of the day, you have a good number of people that do agree with what you say and that do appreciate your opinion. So focus on that instead of focusing so much on the few negative comments or feedback that you get, and then another example, going back to my ex. So after his death, there was certain things that came out that were not so positive, and it affected me so much. One, because it's like, well, he's gone now, so I have like this anger inside me that I can't do anything about. He's not here, so I can't like go up to him and like, I don't know, cuss him out or just release my anger to him because he's no longer here. So I had to learn to like deal with those negative emotions. And it's like, I had this 8-year-long relationship with him, but all I could see was red. Like all I could see was negative, so even like in that situation, I had to, which actually led to another one of the cognitive distortions, which is disqualifying the positive, so where you basically turn the positive stuff into something also negative. So throughout that whole process, I ended up, basically like the positive experiences that I did have with him, which, I did have many positive experiences. I mean, it was 8 years long, I wouldn't have lasted that long with him if it was totally negative.
Right.
But it's like during that time frame, it's like I would mentally change those positive experiences into something kind of negative, like, oh, it probably wasn't even real, or we probably weren't even happy, or he wasn't really happy. It's just, I just turned everything that I know was positive into something negative. So, I mean, I feel like that just shows the power of the mind, So it took a lot for me, like I said, to learn to, what's the word, like compartmentalize my thoughts in a way where it's like, okay, it's okay for you to be upset, because certain things were done and you have a right to be upset over these things, but don't take it to the point where you are obsessing over the negative and disqualifying the positive and the good times that you actually did have. So, like, I wish I could have came across something like this back then, it probably would have helped me. But yeah, I mean, it takes a lot, but I mean, it's doable. It's doable. Even in the most negative situations, you can find a way to come out strong from it or not depressed from it. Yeah.
No, I see what you're saying. Like, I see both points of view that you said. In regards to being a YouTuber, your hope is that anything that you post will help others, and that your content is interested in, and that overall people enjoy it. Unfortunately, people have different mindsets, and not everybody is going to agree with your points of view. I think one of the things that might affect us is the way that people communicate their disagreements to us, because I don't think that they should put words in your mouth or in my mouth or insult us just to state a different opinion than yours. If you want to have a conversation, you're an open-minded person, I'm an open-minded person, and do it, and just have a conversation. Tell me why I'm wrong. One of the things that I have most difficulties in YouTube, being a YouTube making make content maker, is that some people just assume things, like say that I am a Dominican supremacist, or that I'm racist, and all that stuff, which is fine, it's their opinion. But at the same time, what have I said to encourage or for you to think that way about me? Like, what can you just elaborate? And when I ask that questions, they just don't know what to say. Because they just, maybe they're upset because maybe the title of my video was kind of insulting to them, or and they didn't took the time to really listen to what I was saying,
Yeah.
or what the thing is. But for me, one of the distortions that I experienced was all or nothing thinking. Because, for example, at my work, I had this consumer that basically, I called him because he missed his meals, and he told me, "Oh, I just, I just fell, and my like something burst out in my stomach." And I'm like, "What?"
Right.
And you didn't went to the hospital? He's like, "No, I'm fine. I'm taking medications." And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm automatically thinking, like, what did I do? Like, wasn't I supposed to put some type of service in place for to avoid that fall? Like, I'm thinking like the worst out of me, like, oh, I'm the worst case manager. What have I done? And
Oh,
like I start thinking like that. And I'm like, did you call your doctor? Oh, she's coming back in a couple of weeks. She's on vacation. So I'm like, so my coworker is sitting next to me. She tell me call 911. I call 911. The staff person at 911 tells me we cannot force him to come into the ambulance because he's an adult. But we'll call him and then we'll call you back. They called me back. They told me we couldn't take him. And I'm thinking that the guy is dying. I'm
oh
like
my
thinking like,
gosh.
oh my God, this is my fault. What have I done? And it's then at the end, I'm like, well, he was really calm on the phone. Like, if he would have really needed the help, he would have
Yeah.
asked for it. But
Mhm.
it's not something that I think about it immediately. I automatically think it's the end of the world, and then
Yeah.
it's all my fault. Um, and then disqualifying the positive is another of the distortion that I get. Like, if somebody says, "Oh, you did a nice job, treating this consumer," or you are a good flute teacher," I automatically think, "Oh, they're just saying that just to say it. They don't really feel that way. I
Mhm.
need to work harder. I need to design a better lesson plan for this student, or I need to work on my customer skills um, to treat consumers better." Like, I always look for ways to put myself down and not see the
Mm.
positive in my work or in my personal life. And in regards to your relationship to your husband, I totally understand where you're coming from, because you love him very, very much. And I don't know all of the history behind it, but it sounds like you had a different image of who he was.
Yes.
And and then when he passed away, you discover certain things about him that were not so nice, and that disappointed you. And it was painful, and
Yeah.
you are entitled to your feelings, and it's okay. But it's like you said, what's the whole point of holding all of that negative energy inside of you if it's not going to take you forward? You know what I mean? It's not
Mm-hmm.
going to help you feel good. You have two beautiful girls that
Okay.
you have to take care of,
Yeah.
and but I'm sure you, again, you are entitled to your opinion and to your feelings. It's
Mm-hmm.
that is okay to have those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't let it get to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in moments like that, it's also where you kind of have to ask yourself, what are the things that matter to you in your life? Do you want to waste, your time, holding grudges or holding so much anger when, you have reasons to be positive. You have people around you that need you to be positive. And that was something I kind of had to think of myself. Like, as far as my daughters, like, sure, I have reasons to be angry at their father for certain things, even though he's no longer here. But at the end of the day, they don't need me to be a sad, angry, or depressed mom. They need me to be happy. And so I think that was also kind of something that really like encouraged me to try to change my frame of thinking, because I mean, it can really take you down like a rabbit hole of just negativity, and I got to the point where I was like asking around, like, did you know about this, or do you know more about that, blah blah blah. And I mean, it got to the point where like some of my friends had to be like, Christina, just let it go. He's no longer here. There's nothing you can do about this or that situation. You have two daughters to live for that need you to be happy. Like, focus on them. So yeah, I mean, I just had to just shift my focus, from not dwelling on those things pertaining to him, and to just focus on me and my girls, and I think that has really helped me. And, seeing them grow and stuff like that, and, just having such a close, that bond to them, it's helped me to, be more positive, think more positively about life, and even just like looking forward to what is to come in my life. So I mean, it's definitely a process. It's not easy, but I don't know. I think when you find yourself in those type of situations, resorting to books like these is a good idea, or even just talking to people that can help you even sort through your thoughts and your feelings, and that will help encourage you to not dwell on the negative, or if they see that you're implementing one of these cognitive distortions, because sometimes we don't even realize that we're doing it, but somebody else might. And so they might be able to, bring or make us aware of what we're doing, and kind of help us shift our thinking, away from that. So, yeah.
Something else that I learned through this book is that everything that comes from either our parents or teachers or boss, it's all about them. So, like for example, whatever your ex did, the father of their children did, I don't know exactly what happened, but it was about him. He was the one who did something because something was missing within himself. It had nothing to do with you. I see a lot of women out there who, might lose weight, might either even resort to get plastic surgery, look the best way possible. They work on their attitude. They try to be the best wife or girlfriend they can be. And the husband is still going to go out and cheat or do something wrong. So when
Yeah.
that happens, it's not about the wife or the girlfriend, it's about them. They're the ones who need to see what's wrong with themselves before they can be in a relationship. If they don't, this is what upsets me. If you are not ready to be in a relationship, then don't be in a relationship.
Exactly.
you know like don't be with anybody. Just be on your own, work on yourself, and then when you're ready to give out all the love, then do that. Resort to have a relationship with someone. But if you're not ready, then don't be with anybody, because it's very confusing. You know, it's similar to what I experienced with my husband. I'm separated from him, so he, you know, will lie about a lot of stuff, and you know, I will try my best to show the best version of myself to him, but he will still continue to make mistakes. I'm not saying I was perfect by any means,
Mm-hmm.
or you know that it was all his fault and I didn't do anything, because that's not the truth. But at the same time, when you give so much, when you try to work things out and you're not getting that in return, then what is the point in being in a relationship, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's also something I think about now. I mean, of course, after the fact, I think about all that stuff. And that, I mean, that was my experience. Again, I'm not going to say I did nothing wrong, but I did always feel like I was the main one putting most of the effort, like you said, trying to present myself in the best way to him that I could. But at the end of the day, if they want to make their certain choices, they're going to make it regardless. And I think, when we find ourselves in a situation like that, and it happens to men too, men go through this type of stuff too, sometimes with
Yeah.
their girlfriends or their spouses. It's like you sometimes do end up, doing the personalization, that cognitive distortion where you assume responsibility for negative events and you start questioning, like, was it me? Was it something that I wasn't doing or that I was doing? Like, could I have somehow prevented, my partner from doing certain things? But like you said, a lot of the times it really wasn't about you. It was them. There was something in their life, within their being, that they were not content with. Sometimes it's a way of masking insecurities or things about themselves that they're not happy with. And so they act out. I mean, it could be a number of things, but, we just have to be careful to not take the blame for somebody else's actions, because at the end of the day, we're all, well, we're adults, we have our own mind, we have the capability of making our own decisions. So I don't know why it is that, as humans, we sometimes resort so much to trying to take the blame or responsibility for another person's actions, you know? And again, it's not to say that sometimes we can't influence a person's decisions. I mean, if you're doing something wrong or something that is upsetting your partner and they like act out a certain way in response to that, okay, that's one thing. But I think for the most part, though, when we make certain decisions, it's because we want to make them, you know?
Yeah, we are responsible for our own decisions.
Yeah.
Nobody else is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes I seen in some cases some couples that will say, well, she wasn't giving me the attention, so therefore I just went and you know dated somebody else, or I didn't get this. Well, if you didn't get that, why didn't you went and discuss it with her or end the relationship? You know,
Exactly. Yeah. But people don't do that. They like to have their cake
all
and
or
eat
nothing thinking right there.
it. It's something. It
Cognitive
sounds so
distortion.
simple. Yeah. It sounds so simple, but people just don't do it for whatever reason. They like to hold on to whatever it is that they're in, even though they're not entirely happy. But at the same time, they're not addressing the issues, and so they're just, looking for other distractions or whatever, and then things just get worse. I don't know. People don't always implement common sense.
Yeah, a mental filter, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is like that. Was there anything that you like about the book that you want to share?
Well, I think the triple column technique that they showed in the book, let's see, I think I kind of broke it down here somewhere. So on the one column, you list what your automatic thought is. Okay. Like say something negative happened, you write down what your thought is, and then you rate it from 1 to 100. And then in the second column, you write what the distortion was. So basically, all the type of things that we've been discussing. But then after you write those things down, in the third column, you give a rational response to it. So you analyze your thought and the negative distortion, but then you substitute that thought with something more, realistic, and then you rate that. So it kind of allows you to like kind of judge like how what's the word, how am I trying to say? So when you rate that initial thought, say you're just angry and you rate it at 100, but then by the time you get to the rational response column and you rate that, you might be able to see that your negative thoughts actually decreased because you went through the process of writing your thoughts down, analyzing what it is that you're actually distorting, and then at the end produce like a rational type of conclusion. So I think that I liked that it provided like this tool that we can use. I mean, of course, it might be hard to do that every time you have like a negative thought come through, and you might not always have like a pen and paper available to do that. But I think if you do remember and you are able to do that, I do think it would be a good tool to use. And I also like that this book, like, it pushes you to do critical thinking in regards to your own thoughts, And for example, the thought about or the part about whether your anger is productive or not. I think that is something that's a really important thing to think about when you are angry. And it's set to ask yourself, is my anger directed towards someone that knowingly and intentionally acted in a hurtful manner? Because sometimes we might be upset at someone that doesn't even know they did anything wrong, or maybe they don't think that they did anything wrong. Like, it wasn't their intention to make us upset, yet here we are harboring all this anger, and then we might not even say anything to them about it. And then it also asks, does it help me achieve a goal, or is it useful? And I don't know, I think a lot of times, if you really, really think about it, some of the things that we get angry about, it's like, is there a point in me being angry? Like, what good is it going to do me to be angry about this? Like, I think a better question is, well, what am I doing about my anger? If I'm upset, am I reaching out to this person that made me upset? Or am I doing something to change the situation that made me upset? So I think there were definitely like some good tips in there. And I think if we try to implement them, I would say in our daily life, but even just like once or twice a week, whenever something negative does come up, I do think it could help us achieving our goal of feeling good, as the title states.
Yeah, I relate this. I watched this video about this person who went to Peru and worked with the Native American people over there, work with chakras. And, basically, this Native American woman told this psychologist from Argentina that, that nobody has the power to make you feel bad. Like, somebody can say certain things that are insulting to you, and it will affect you, but you are in control of your emotions. You would let it affect it until an extent. And then, let's say if somebody walks in right now and insults me, of course I'm going to be affected by it. If you heard what the person said, you're going to be affected by it. But at the end of the day, I'm going to decide how long and how badly that's going to affect me. Like, it's okay if today maybe I talk to you about what we just witnessed and tell you how I feel, but then if I continue to talk about that tomorrow and the day after and after, then I'm just perpetuating pain for myself, and I'm aggravating everybody around me. So, we need to learn how to basically manage our emotions. Don't let those things, anything that presents itself before you to get uh, to affect you that badly. Like, for example, if let's say at my job somebody comes and tells me, oh, you are the worst case manager, you're worthless, or something like that. Of course I'm going to be affected by that, but I will stand up for myself, and I will say, no, I'm here all the time. I do my work, I do what I can. So why are you saying that? And then that's when I start thinking about it. She's talking about herself. She's projecting onto me, because that's when people insult you, it's because they have a problem with their own selves.
Mm.
I start thinking about that's why there are so many bullies, because at some point in their lives they were very vulnerable and they just did not like themselves, and they're projecting their own insecurities onto other people.
Right. Yeah. Man, your job will really test you, I think. Because like you were saying earlier, you're working in an environment, sometimes, up to 8 hours, maybe even more a day. You're surrounded by all these people, just different personalities, different mindsets, different cultures, different backgrounds. And, not everyone has like the same maybe social etiquette that you might have, or what you consider to be the proper way to treat or speak to someone. They may not have the same, opinion. So they may talk to you a certain way and think it's okay. And you're just like, excuse me. I mean, your work will really test you, and it's very easy to, get into all those negative feelings, or especially when it comes to like our work performance. I think we can be a little sensitive when it comes to that, or how people respond to us. And so, if someone tells you, like you said, in your example, you're like the worst case manager, or I don't know, if somebody was to tell me, oh, you're the worst person at your job, even though I know that I'm not the worst, I still have a job for a reason, I must be doing my job right. But it can be very easy to just kind of dwell on that and then start doubting yourself. Well, what if I am that bad?
You start wondering.
Yeah. You like I said, you start doubting, or you start comparing yourself to like other coworkers, which is another really bad thing to do, because we all have our own, individual strengths and weaknesses. We all have different things that we can contribute and bring to our job. So, I mean, that's not a good thing to do either. But yeah, it's crazy though. When you really break it down and really analyze all the ways in which we distort our thoughts. It's so crazy. And we just do it just like this. You didn't have to think about it. You just do it.
Yeah, it's so
crazy.
easy to be unhappy all the time. I
Yeah.
find it's like we like to be unhappy.
Yeah.
We enjoy being upset all the time at people, and we don't seek out for very like positivity, like nice feelings in the heart. What's the
Mm-hmm.
point of living a life of being upset and angry at other people or at yourself, as
Yeah.
opposed to find resolution and move
Mm-hmm.
on?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I mean, sometimes I guess certain life experiences may harden us a bit, and what is the saying or the verse, basically what's in your heart is what you speak type of thing. I forget how exactly it's worded, but there's a lot of truth in that. When you hold a lot of hate and resentment in your heart, that's what comes out, and that's how you think. It affects your way of thinking. But I don't know, I feel like at some point you kind of have to make that personal decision, or just have that realization, like, okay, I need to make a change. I need to do something to shift the way I think, or the way that I perceive people, the way that I perceive the world. Which actually, that was in one of the cognitive distortions. Which one is it? Like when you view everything as like negative.
Disqualifying the positive.
No, it was one of the other ones.
Personalization, maybe.
Hold on, which one was it? I know I wrote it down somewhere. Oh man, I can't remember. Maybe I didn't write it down. Okay. The should, is it should statement? So you tell
Oh,
yourself
yeah.
things that should have gone the way you hoped are expensive. They're directed. So when you direct it at yourself, it leads to guilt and frustration. But when it's directed against other people or the world, it leads to anger or frustration. So you think to yourself, you're just angry all the time because you're like, well, people should be this way and people should think that way. And then it just leads you to just being angry all the time. So, oh, and another one that I feel people do a lot is the labeling and mislabeling. That's another big one. I think especially online, it's very easy for us to throw labels at people or for people to throw labels at us. And so it's like you basically put them in a box, like, well, I saw your video and I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I'm going to go ahead and say you're bad and I'm going to call you this name, and it's just so annoying. But that's another thing. It's like I said in the book, labels are useless abstractions that lead to anger, anxiety, and low self-esteem. And it goes back to like how you were saying about bullies. Bullies, a lot of times they, label people and they call them names and this and that, but it just goes back to their own low self-esteem,
It's they're projecting onto others.
Yeah. Another reason why you can't take stuff personal sometimes, because I don't know, you never really know what another person is going through internally that might, make them talk to you a certain way. But you just kind of have to have that realization, like, all right, this person is going through their own stuff. They're obviously projecting their own insecurities onto me. I don't need to pay attention to it,
Yeah, that's exactly how I am trying, because it's not easy. We're talking and saying, oh, yeah, we can just think about the cognitive distortions and try to apply, the writing down all of our thoughts. But it's something that takes a lot of practice, and we have to find a way to identify those cognitive distortions that we probably experience on a regular day basis. Some people more than others. But we got to learn how to identify those cognitive distortions and try to move on from them and say, this isn't real. I am not the worst case manager. I have this job. I'm still here. I have not been fired. Therefore, that means that I'm doing something good. And this person is probably insecure about herself or himself, and they're projecting onto me. And not let it affect you. And also, that mislabeling, well, I feel like a lot of people need to put people in the box without actually trying to get to know the person and try to listen to what the person is saying. Like, you need to, like, I like to give people chances. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. And if I get disappointed, if I, did not get, the results that I wanted to, then, there's no need for me to keep associating myself with that person, because, or keep talking to that person, and but not automatically jump onto conclusions and say this person like is pro this, or she's a communist, or she's this, or she's like, no, like, listen to what you are saying before you come up with your own conclusions. But at the same time, we have to kind of let things slide. We can't let the labels that other people put onto us to affect us. People are ignorant, or people are just projecting onto you.
That's true. Yeah, that's definitely true. I've had my little fair share of labels thrown at me here on YouTube, and I'm just like, bruh, like, I don't know. I just have to learn to just let it slide, let it go. I know deep down what I am and what I am not, and I need to just let people, people gonna say what they want to say. I can't stop that, but I can control how I let it affect me. Of course, it's a work in progress, but I feel like I'm getting better at it, so
yeah. I used to, like, I have this other consumer who will call me, and he will, if it goes from one extreme to another. If you do a couple things that they like and they're satisfied, then you're the best social worker out there. But then you still do your best to try to meet their needs, but there are things that are outside of your control. So this particular consumer did not get his Ensure on time. There was something with the mail, and he started yelling at me. He started telling me, "You're the worst social worker. I want a different social worker, this and that, blah 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 blah." And I said, "Oh, you want a different social worker? Okay, yeah, sure." And I put my supervisor, and then he kind of like calmed down. He's like, "No, no, no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I talked to you this way." I'm like, "Wow, okay." Like if you show them that that you're strong and that it doesn't affect you, what they're saying, that they're gonna back off. That's how I try to
Mm,
do things. Yeah.
true. True. That's the other hard part, not like retaliating back and just letting it go. Because a lot of people, they do just say stuff just to get a rise out of you,
Yeah.
like they get some feeling of satisfaction out of that. That's another thing. I sometimes have to tell myself, like, okay, just stop responding or whatever to certain people. Just let it go.
Yes, I am learning to let it go.
Uh,
Let
yeah.
it go.
The things you learn on YouTube. Dealing with people, man. Crazy.
Oh man. Well, is there anything else that you would like to add to the discussion?
No, I think we covered everything. Yeah, I mean, I think for anyone listening, if you're dealing with any of the things that we mentioned, this would definitely be a good read to go through, and just some of the exercises that are in the book, I think they're good to try to, just learn to work through your thoughts in like a rational way. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely recommend this book to any of you listeners out there that are looking for something like this to help you out.
Yes. So thank you so much. Please read the information about this book in the link. I hope that all of the things that we talk about today really helps you deal with any given situation, that it helps you educate yourself about all of the cognitive distortions that we probably experience on a different day. And thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to Viva Bella Extina. And thank you again. Have a great day. Please hit like, subscribe, and I will see you on my next video. Bye. Thank you, Christina.